name is Brendan Bruce Shiels. I was Dublin as can be. I was born opposite John Davies on the Fisborough Road. My dad worked in the CIA. I've been a proud Boss fan all my life. Proud to be called a gypsy when I go to Daily Mount on a Friday night. It's like coming home to me. What I am is an 80-year-old double hip replacement sprinter, or as they call me in Meath, a Dublin hip replacement sprinter. So I met two real nice people there a few weeks ago, Mary and Carl from Nina, and they were asking me like how I was so loose. And I said, I have my own set of exercises, and I call them the Brendan Bruce Shiels electromagnetic exercises. Effortless exercises for the elderly. So they're very simple. It's based on this. The body is at least 60 to 70% water. The heart is at least 73% water. The lungs 83% water. We are full of water. We are actually water diviners. Not only that, the body is full of electricity from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Electricity, electricity, electricity. So what I try and do is, I use my hands as a conduit to get the energy and just channel it around the body. And ultimately I have a way of loosening up. So I'm just going to show one especially for Mary and Carol and Nina. And this one is called, each stretch that I do has a name. This one is called Get Up Off Yourself. Now it's very important that you hold your hands in a particular way. Now I have to show you this. There's a line here caused by see the way your thumb works, there's a line there. So what I want you to do is put your thumb on that line. Close your hand this way. You'll find you're generating more energy in your own body. So you lift yourself up to here. Get up off yourself. So what you're trying to lift is this area here is what you want to lift. You lift that up and you hold it. Just stay there. Just leave your mouth open a little bit. Leave your knees just bent a fraction and stay very relaxed. Just hold that. And then ultimately try and lift this as well. You've lifted that, now lift this. That's the lift. This is called Get Up Off Yourself. And ultimately you kind of just do a little swivel like that. But for the time being, we're just staying with this one there. Just keep that. And keep it up for 20 seconds if you can. I can keep going all day, but if you're only starting off, you'll actually find this more awkward than you think. And it walks its way down through your inner legs, down the back of your knees, down through your calves, to the bottom of your feet, to the top of your head. And the electricity in your body is coming through your hands. You're going around, they're like a conduit, it's channeling the energy around your body. Just hold that. So I have 12 of these moves, 12 of these, and I'm only going to show you this one. Every so often I'll do another one until I get up to 12. So that's the start, that's called Get Up Off Yourself, especially for Mary and Carl and Nina. Now, today, the 4th of December, Pat Courtney, one of our great pals, he passed away there 3 years ago. Time goes by like very, very fast. So I'm just doing a little bit for him. I'm just kind of talking about him in a particular way. So let's put it this way. Teacher, musician, artist, friend. That's what Pat Courtney was to me. We'd get together every now and then, have a bit of crack, play some music, talk about anything, have a cup of tea. We cover many different subjects, good humour and bonhomie. And he always said that teaching his pupils in St. Kevin's community in Clondalkin was a vocation. That's where he was meant to be. And the book he co-wrote on bullying will always be a very, very big part of Pat's legacy. Teacher, musician, artist, friend. That's what Pat Courtney was to me. We talk about James Joyce, Ulysses, and the quakes of Leopold Bloom, Capel Street, the halcyon days, and he gave a night in Slattery's rocking up, blowing away the room. And he always spoke fondly about Dickie Rock in his early years with Sacre Blue. And it came as an awful shock, Pat's passing, to all the great musicians and friends that he knew. And he was taken way too soon. The way he passed still takes it out of me. teacher, musician, artist, friend. He was just pure class till the very last. Pat Courtney, especially for Pat's 3rd anniversary, the day, Pat Courtney. Oh yeah. Now, I'm a real Samuel Beckett fan, and I'm a real sort of Cormac McCarthy fan. I like that type of stuff, like. But Beckett's favourite quote for me would be, "The day you die is the same as every other day, except it's short." So I have this little thing that I do with the alphabet that's very influenced by Beckett, which is a bit strange when you think about it, because he was kind of more like tragic comedy, but I thought he had a great sense of humour. And I love what that, you know, I know all these very well known stuff, but there's one with Billy Whitlaw called Not Why. And I'm just looking at it and thinking, like, you have to talk very fast to do all that sort of stuff. So I done it with the alphabet, and I call this the adept aesthetic with the ascetic attitude. So I'm going to go from, you know, down through the 26 letters of the alphabet, doing it in a particular way, and saying the influence, like I would have been influenced by Samuel Beckett, but not in a way that you would think, because I actually enjoy the crack all the time. I don't get involved in the dark stuff at all. So here we go. I call this the adept aesthetic with the ascetic attitude. The adept aesthetic with the ascetic attitude like to alleviate the adverse wording and ambience of a chord. The authenticity of his argument would ameliorate the angst with an astute, altruistic, articulate alternative. This ace arbiter at the apex of his aplomb was an abdicate ability, agility, eclecticism, admiration, affirmation, adjuration, adoration, accreditation, assimilation, and advantages for all. Beckoning, but mount, benevolent men, the factor was be dazzled, be devil, be guiled, and amused by the body, and illusion back to master from body. It was all the way with the bear to the blues. The boys were getting bigger and better, and bolder was a bonus, a boost. A pussy for business, no barriers, no borders, no boys, no business. Back to the basics, expanding with the banks without condoning or condemning or condescending in the confrontation, consternation, confusion, collusion, or contempt. No chronic, crude, cringing chagrin, or a cacophony of cataclysmic convulsions. They considered Connemara as a conduit of creativity for some conscientious, caring, competent contemplativeness, where it would connect in a cascading cadence of confluence that had credibility at its core. They should view the prism of detail as he deigned to deride the derivative dexterity of the didactic dialectic, whose diffident dialogue was deteriorating into a detached, desolate, destitute diatribe, directed at those dedicated diehards, detoxing from debilitating dipsomania, and driven by desire and the best of all delusions, they dipped down into depths of delight and danced until dawn. Eclectic existentials was ecstatic and exhilarated with the exuberance of the enigmatic egalitarian, who liked to energize every exciting enterprise existing between the extraneous and the extrinsic. He evolved an ethos of exemplary expectation where he would elucidate and encapsulate an expediency, an empiricist exuding an interior exterior, encouraging others to end at enmity. He never fabricated any facet of his faculties. He was a fallible phantasm, a formidable faculty for fusion, a phenomenalist with a fundamental fixation for the firmament, whose fervour fulfilled the pursues, the spree fall, which in turn forced the frenzy of frantic funniosity till he finally found physical rectitude with a financial advisor who fondly fibula fashioned his focus till they famously flew off into the future. He could be generous and gregarious, gloriously full of good grace, with a gift of the gilded with gravitas and majesty, with never neglected the gentry, or try and second guess the growth of growing in the well-grounded garment. He was a genuine genius, a genial gouger who had no gripe with grooving, but would rather groove than grovel. Those who glow got his goat. He was a global gladiator, groomed, gleaming and glistening. The harangued and harassed, harried and hassled, he would hurtle headlong into herbaceous homeland of heartfelt honesty and the hope of heroism, the host and the healthy haven of the healing harbour. His hefty hubris was never on hiatus, but a hype and hysteria never hit home, because honour humility was his only homily. In the high hinterland of hope, he would hail the hospitality of the holy, and he would hitchhike through history on the highway of hope. Instinctively, he knew that the idealists were the idiosyncrasies of an iconoclast who would illuminate the illiterate, illegal, illicit illusion of the indisputable incompetent, whose inflexibility was infuriating and insulting. The idealist could be ineffable, indefatigable, incorrigible, incorruptible, indestructible, but never ignorable. He could identify with the indolent, the insecure, the indisposed. Intrinsically, he was imagination, imbued with impetus. Jock was jock-like, John was your con, Joe was your coast, but Jake had the jokes. Justin was judicious, jovial and joyful, and the jolly Jakey jargon was just a jump of the jill, the jeweler. The jingle jangle in his shaded jeans made him jump and jive, jiggle and juggle, jostle his joints like a japing jester at a jazz jamboree in Jakarta. He kept his hair camp, but his kind of kiss was akin to kissing kudos to a kinetic kangaroo. He liked to keep his karma at the kernel of his knowledge, so he didn't knock the kerfuffle in the kibbutz. He put the kibosh on the kamikaze Kiwi, who was kowtowing with the kilt-wearing keeper of the keys, who had a knack of kneeling on his knapsack till his kebab went kaput in his kimono, and it all kicked off. From the labyrinth, the luminaries latched on to the lack of lassitude and the latitudinarium. His lifelong liberalism and lateral levity were laudable in a land lumbered with latent lament. He would laugh at those lurking, leering loop points of lust, lounging and loitering in the lap of luxury, as he listed the lessons he'd learned from those legends of liberty, the lilting lovers of life. From the mystical magnificence of the majestic morning, the magnetic moisture with the metaphysical maxim mesmerised the masses with magic, muse and mystery, then monopolised the merchants of miasma. He would meditate on the mawkish, the maudlin, the mundane, the morose, the moribund, the myriad meanings of mercy for the maligned and the marginalised, manna for the multitude, and minuscule minimalism. Like a nimbus and a commulant walk nonchalantly across the nebulous night, giving the impression of nyctalopia, without nihilism or narcissism, and nurtured by nutrients, he nailed his numinous snooze to the nuance of his narrative. Neither nervous or nauseous, negative or neurotic, he needed to be near the nub of the nocturnal. Nomadic notions of natives in nature nudged them neatly towards the nucleus of normality. The optics for the Oriental Olympian osteopath were ordained by the oracle and observed by the octogenarian outsider with the optimistic outlook that would overcome any obstacle oscillating in his orbit. His occupation meant he was easily offended, but he was never odious, overt, odd, or offhand. But he would obliterate the opposition or opinionated, orientated outrage, then orchestrate the obvious outcome. He could palaver with the petty, the peons, the pariahs, the paltry, the poor and the powerful. He would promulgate and prognosticate to the proficient and profound and proclaim the patriotic proclamation. He had a perspicuous perspective pertaining to philosophy and phlebotomy, and was pertinacious and perspicacious with personal property. His personal persuasions of principle and pluralism propelled a pulsating pacifist along the paths of peace. He had a quaint quality of quips that helped in his quest for contestants, but he had no qualms about making his quarry quake. He would quibble and quarrel with those querulous quidnuncs in the quaking quagmire of quangos. He would question the quid pro quo with Qatar and the quandary of those on the quantaphonic quest. Then, taking a quantum leap to the front of the queue, he would quizzically quote from Quixote. The radical raiders of the Renaissance were raised with a rod of reason rasped regularly against their rear. They were resilient, reliable, resourceful, resolute, with a rapid response to restoration and renovation. They recognized the recipients of restitution and retribution and regarded restlessness as the road to redemption. Raucous and raunchy, they revelled in ruse and riddle and reaped the rewards of reciting the rosary. The swinging 60 showmans with their slinky silver satin suits with scintillating, syncopating and salubrious self-confident, skillful set of show-stopping standards, sweat-soaked swiveling, sensational sax solos. There was no shame in severely shaking the souls of your sensible, sensuous,
subliminal subtleties. We were stalwarts with stamina, succinct and supreme. These were the 60s, and stars were shining. The tasteful tenderness of the talented talisman was thought-provoking, therapeutic, full of true tolerance and touching tranquility, so transparent that it transcended into a treasure trove of trust. Transversing the turgid, turbulent turmoil of twilight twisting, tweaking, twang-wang, tongue-kind tempos, tangible translations, thoughts of tracks and trains of triumphs. The unassuming, urbane utilitarianist was ubiquitous in his unction for the underprivileged. He was unequivocal in his urge to unite the unique and the unsung in the upper echelons of unheard of utopia. Uplifting the urchins of the underclass was the ultimate understatement in unison and unity, but he utilised the universal underground to do his utmost to undo the unequal. Vis-a-vis the VIPs, there will be no vile vindictiveness, no vitriolic verbiage, no vituperation, no vacillation. We are all full of vim, verve, vigour and vitality. Though we may be victims of vicissitude, we are vibrant virtuosos, virile vigilantes, visionaries for the voiceless, validated, vindicated, viable and vocal, verified in the vernacular. Words of wisdom would never wilt, not even in a wishy-washy watered-down wasteland of waffle. The swarthy earth of words would never wind up, the winsome, the windswept, the windswept, the worthwhile. He would welcome the wretched, the wicked, the warlike into a way of well-being, well-meaning, well-spoken, where he would wipe and wash away the woes of the wild as they waded and wallowed in the wonders of a wounded world. X marks the spot where the X-rays of the xenophobic xylophone player were Xerox Nezanandu Xavier. He yodeled his way from the YMCA to the yard with the out full of yeast and yan. He yanked his white fronts under the U3 Yeti and called it yoga. He yearned for youthfulness, yaks and yam and yummy yellow yogurt. The yesterdays of yore when you and I were young yelling yippee-yi-yi, bro. You who? Sig and Zag and Zanies, Hesper, Zeppelins, Apples, Easy and Zits and Zombies and Zippers and Zebras and Zebras and all in the zone of the zoological. They go singing, the Zit, the Zoom and the Zephyrs. They knew a Zulu who wanted a sick mind and Sababi when Mazila the Zenith with the seal of the Zealot and the Zitgeist of Zosimus. The adept aesthetic with the ascetic attitude like to alleviate the adverse within an ambience of a car. Some people like to twist themselves to suit the truth. Some people like to twist the truth to suit themselves. Some people do the twist because they can't do the locomotion. That's a train of thought. I think, therefore I am. I am, therefore I think I am. I think I am. Am I? I think. Am I? I think. Am I? I think, therefore I am. I am, therefore I think I am. I think I am. Am I? Am I? I think.